Let's bring in John Fishwick, now trial attorney and former U.S. attorney for the Western District of Virginia, to understand the scope of this and the constitutionality issue of the 14th Amendment. People born in the U.S. under parents who are illegal immigrants. John, what happens next with that?
Well, that law, that executive order will remain up in the air, Marni, whether that's constitutional or not. It's always been viewed by the folks in this country, if you're born here, no matter who your parents are, that you're a citizen. The Trump executive order says, look, if your parents are not here illegally, if they're illegally here, then if you're born here, that does not mean that you're a citizen of the United States of America. And so this leaves that open. Is that constitutional or not? I think it's going to be an uphill argument for the Trump administration to win that case ultimately with the Supreme Court, but that's not going to be at least for another year. So in the interim, this executive order and the places where these three judges have struck it down in the other 47 places where that hasn't happened, states that has not happened, the Trump administration has got free reign to enforce this executive order, which means it can be a big part of the President Trump's immigration battles. He can then say that babies who are born here are not citizens if their parents are not legally present in this country. And so you're going to see a patchwork of different rules in different states, but it's going to have far-reaching effects. And the Trump administration, the big picture, like Vice President Vance pointed out, is now on all of these executive orders, they're going to, go case by case. A judge is not going to be able to issue a nationwide injunction, and that's an important win, big time, for the Trump administration.
That said, though, John, there is this 30 days. They said they won't go into effect for 30 days. So there may be a push to get these executive orders through and start enacting the law. However, there's some time between now and then. So what does that mean? How significant is that?
Well, I think the two sides are going to load up between now and then, Marni. I think the folks who are representing the children and the families who are potentially here illegally in this country, they're going to be filing lawsuits left and right for those individual clients. Probably some lawyers will try to make it a class action. Class action is kind of a way to get around you can't do an individual injunction, but a class action is a very kind of archaic, complicated process. So I think there'll just be a flurry of individual cases. And I think the Trump administration will say, look, in these states where there hasn't been a decision, you are not a citizen of this country. That means that you can't vote, that you can't have the full rights and privileges of a citizen in this country. And so you're going to see a clash. So on the one hand, I think folks on both sides of the aisle, big picture, have been frustrated with nationwide injunctions. But what's going to happen when the guillotine drops in 30 days from now is you're going to see a flurry of activity by the Trump administration and by the lawyers on the other side. And so it's going to clog up our courts on a kind of an individual basis. But the big picture is that the law has not been found to be unconstitutional. The executive order has not been found to be unconstitutional on a nationwide basis.
On the issue of these nationwide injunctions, though, has this become an issue under this administration, or when has there been concern in the past over the lower court's authority to essentially block executive orders?
Presidents, all presidents have complained about federal judges blocking their orders. Both Obama and Biden did it. I think if you go back as far as FDR, presidents have complained about it. But President Trump has got more executive orders than any other president. He has faced more litigation challenging those. So it's much more of an acute problem for him and his lawyers. And so others have complained about it, but he went forward. And I think his lawyers should get a lot of credit here. This was an artful move by them to say, hey, look, Supreme Court, you don't have to get to the substance of our executive order. We just want you to stop these flurry of nationwide injunctions. And so they had a targeted legal approach here that was successful today. Now it's going to get a little more complicated because now you're going to see a flurry of a lot of lawsuits, I predict, in 30 days. But nonetheless, it gives much more protection to a president not to have a federal judge say, hey, look, what you've done is illegal. I'm going to stop you, President of the United States, nationwide. Those days are over.
Right. And when it comes to the constitutionality of the 14th Amendment, and I hear what you're saying, we're not there yet, but that's where the scramble is going to be, because if, in fact, this opens the door to that moving forward, is that something that would be retroactive? I mean, logistically speaking and legally speaking, how messy could that get?
That's going to get messy, Marni. I think the Trump administration's position is going to be is it not retroactive. In other words, they can go forward, and so they can deny people citizenship rights as of today in those states where a lawsuit has not been brought or in 30 days.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.